Alrighty. Good evening, Rocketeers. I hope the first week of school is going well for all of you. We have a lot to cover today, so let's get started. First on the agenda is the schedule for the fall semester. We will also be going over the new name for the rocket, the trade study for the rocket's diameter, and the sub-team show and tell. We will conclude our meeting with the sub-team updates. Okay, the fall semester schedule. We this semester we will be switching to bi-weekly meetings. We decided that this would be best for all sub-teams moving forward. This will make our time more efficient, content-rich meetings, and we'll have more time to get work done. So this means that our next meeting will be Tuesday, September 6th. That's only because we didn't want to make y'all work on Labor Day. All right. Oh, and the sub-team lab schedule is attached to the link on the slide. So if you need to refer back to that, it'll be in there as well as the drive. Next slide. So our rocket name, Shasta will be the name of this year's rocket. The example of a rocket design is to your right. We want you guys to start thinking about designs now. So if you want to click on the link or click on the, scan the QR code, you're more than welcome to do so. It will directly direct you to the folder for the design submissions. So congratulations, Shasta, and shout out to Adrian. He's the rocket that you see there to the right. That's actually his rocket design that he had for last year. Next slide. All right, I'll hand this one over to Robbie.
Hello, everyone. So the first step in our design process for Shasta is going to be choosing the diameter. So just like last year, we're going to be considering the 4-inch or a minimum diameter rocket and also a 6-inch diameter. So the main difference from last year will be that we're not considering a transitional section where we considered if Zenith was going to have maybe like a 4-inch body and then a 6-inch section for the payload. We're just going to be considering a uniform 4-inch versus 6-inch rocket. So the way we're going to approach this decision is by each sub-team completing a trade study, analyzing which diameter will work best for them. So there is a lot of content from last year when we did the same thing. So I want us to utilize the knowledge that we now have from last year, especially considering our performance of Zenith at Spaceport America Cup, and incorporating that into each sub-team's respective trade studies so that we can make a more informed decision on whether a 4-inch or a 6-inch diameter will be best for the team and best for us reaching 30,000 feet. One thing I did want to note is that the text and writing is not too important. Bullet points are okay for that. The most important aspect is going to be the decision matrix. So make sure you spend most of your time actually looking at your decision, evaluating your options, and choosing the diameter that will best fit your sub-team and your sub-team's needs. One thing I forgot to add on here is the due date. It will be due next Monday, August 29th. We do want to move things along pretty quickly this semester and try and get that design done before the end of the semester. So the sooner we can make this decision, the better. And that's why we didn't want to emphasize too much about the writing, just kind of focus on your actual decision. So you can find the document template for both the trade study and your decision matrix. It's linked there, but it's also on the first page of the drive as well. So for our next topic, I'll be talking about the sub-team show and tell. So this is a new event that we're going to be putting on this year. Some of the potential dates are someday between September 6th through 9th, or someday between September 13th through 15th. We'll make that decision by the end of the week after talking to the officers tonight. And the location is still to be decided, but I think we'd prefer if we can end up in CBB. So the main reason for having this event is for each sub-team to bring physical components to quote unquote show and tell. This is mainly for prospective members to try and learn more about the team and each sub-team so that prior to filling out our application, they'll have a better idea of learning, which members are on each sub team, who do I connect with the best. So what type of work does each sub team do physically and hands-on, so I could best choose which sub team I think I'll have the most interest in. I think it'll be a lot better than previous years because in the past few years, we've had the application, and I think the only thing that they've had access to is the framework to learn about the team, and obviously any other information on our website. But having this in-person event prior to submitting their application will not only give them an opportunity to learn a lot more about the team and each sub-team, but for us to also see if there's any outstanding members to keep an eye on throughout the application and acceptance process.
Okay, COVID protocol. So we were recently informed that we have a member on the SCR team that recently tested positive for COVID. So if you were in the lab last night, there is a chance that you were exposed. We cannot release the name of the individual due to HIPAA laws. We ask that you guys please follow the COVID guidelines. If you were exposed, please get tested 6 to 10 days from now. Test even if you don't develop any symptoms and inform us as soon as possible. You will not be allowed in the lab or any in-person events until day 10, until you can come back with a negative test result. If you test negative, continue taking precautions through day 10 and wear a high quality mask. If you test positive, please isolate immediately. And as I said before, please let us know. The resources down below will have links to the CDC guidelines for exposure, as well as a link to the testing kiosk that we have here at the University of Houston. If you scan the QR code, it will send you and direct you to the same thing. It'll direct you to the testing kiosk that we have at the University of Houston. So please, guys, keep us updated with your test results, and we hope you all feel better. Please stay safe. Okay, now we will have the sub-team updates. Go ahead, analysis.
All right, so analysis, our lab times are set to be on Tuesdays from 1 to 4 p.m. So currently in the lab today, we've been working heavily on the diameter trade study. We have a pretty good start to it. We determined what criteria are going to be the most relevant for this. And now it's just up to us to kind of finish it and run any simulations that we feel are necessary to give us the best answer to this. So this may include collaborating with some other sub-teams just in case we are unsure about some of the rocket's potential layout, so maybe payload and avionics and structures as well. And we also want to begin comparing Open Rocket, RockSim, and ROS-Aero to determine which is the most accurate. A few future tasks that we hope to work on after this are one, to begin work on our custom flight sim software, as well as begin any FEA, CFD, or any other analysis that are relevant once we get some design decisions finalized.
Hi everyone. So for avionics updates, our lab times are now Thursdays 4 to 7 p.m. It will not be held this week though. It will be starting in person next week. Right now we're just planning our future SRED avionics projects. You can see on the right on the whiteboard, a few of us members we met up I think yesterday, and we try to brainstorm a bunch of ideas for avionics. So this includes a bunch of SRAD projects, so like developing connections between UV sensors and just like cricket biomarkers. So just trying to just throw out ideas there of how we could like monitor the crickets, especially since to like help out payload and just help out like their electronic system this year. This includes like monitoring the air quality in the air and like the bacterial presence of the air and also magnetic field strength. So we recently learned that's like a factor we could also look into and its effects of the atmosphere on like crickets and stuff like that. And we're also measuring radiation in the atmosphere, so like muon detectors, UV radiation, etc. We thought UVA radiation, if a clear payload happens, would be a cool thing to also kind of measure as well, as it could be really helpful insight into how radiation affects electronics and also how it could cause certain phenomena such as spit flipping, etc. And we're also working on auxiliary project research, so like strain gauges on the fins, thermocouplers to measure how hot the motor gets, and crash landing damage mitigation system that one of our members brought up as well. In case we have a crash landing, how do we protect the electronics from getting destroyed? And we also just sort of in general improve the COT system and try to make wire management as smooth as possible. Other than that, that's it for avionics.
Hi everyone, hope you're having a good week so far. Our lab times are Wednesday, 7 to 9 p.m. this semester. So tomorrow is our first lab this semester. Our meeting times were originally Tuesday at 8 p.m. But depending on what is decided in the officer meeting tonight, they will be changed and determined after. We have been assigned 3 trade studies to kick things off, one for the rocket's diameter, which you've heard about. The second one is studying like what bug to use. I do have a lot of experience with flies. My wonderful co-lead Kevin did these slides, so go Kevin. And then crickets, grasshoppers, worms are also possible. The rules state that like all bugs are pretty set to go in there. And then we need to make sure the bugs won't be obliterated during launch or liquefied. And then that trade study is due on September 6th, I believe. And then we have a third trade study for payload placement in the rocket. I think the biggest thing about that is having the payload in the nose cone would help with stability. And then structures and avionics, from what we know, are leaning towards payload in the nose cone. On Friday, we have a leads meeting with Dr. H, Joe, and Robbie to discuss if we can even raise bugs in the lab, some other side notes about payload, and then other developments are just getting like genetics professors involved with this that have worked with bugs before. I just started my specialization in atmospheric science, so I'm hoping to get that professor involved in this, and then also working on our scientific reasoning.
All right. So for propulsion, this semester, I guess, yeah, semester, the meeting times are going to be 4 to 5 on Monday and 4 to 6 on Wednesday. In terms of what we do every week, we're just going to assess our project list and get to work on that. So it's going to vary week to week. The main things we're working right now are the test stands. So we don't have a small test stand yet, but we're going to work on that. And the main, I guess the challenging part with that's going to be getting the load cell and the recording hardware and software in operation. I have Purse has said that he had a load cell and I happen to have an Arduino, so we'll see if we can put those together and make it work. I mean, you can see the large test stand is the picture on the left there. And then he and I are also going to keep on working on the rest of the team, keep on working on the S-Ride motors. So we're going to try to look at using aluminum casings, like the ones on the bottom right corner there. I brought these from Panama because I didn't use them. And also using black powder rather than rocket candy because it has a little bit more kick to it. Yeah, the ones we did last semester with Adrian and Ozzy, they were made out of like paper. And when we tried to pack everything in there, they kind of started crumpling. So it just didn't look like it was going to work real well. And then the top right corner picture, that isn't from SCR, but it's something I did at home. And this was a static fire of one of these, an engine this size in the same tube. So that's kind of stuff we're going to be doing pretty soon. That's it.
All right. So for recovery, our lab times are going to be Tuesday, 5:15 to 6:45, and Thursday, 12 o'clock to 1:30. We're going to do bi-weekly weekly meetings online, Sunday, 8 to 9 p.m. Anybody can pick it out. So this week it's going to be just the 4-inch and 6-inch trade study. Got to consider things like the recovery weight components and the volume it's going to take up. Mainly, though, it's just going to come down for us to the bulk head area, the amount of space that the black powder and the CO2 systems are going to be taking up, as well as the Able. In addition, we still have to check over the CO2 systems. We just took off the CD3 today. Might have to switch over to the Raptor, so it's gonna be something up in the air this week. And as far as SRAD goes this semester, it's gonna be all parachute manufacturing. It's gonna be design research, planing the gores, cutting the gores, sewing everything together to make a cohesive parachute. And we think this semester we're just gonna focus on smaller scale parachutes, maybe test those off on old L1 rockets at Hearn, and just go from there.
So Structures has decided that the best meeting time, or I guess lab time that will work best for all of us is 7 to 9 p.m. on Fridays. We are thinking of adding additional meeting time just for, I guess, just talking and stuff like that. So we're going to bring that up on Friday just to kind of talk about that a little bit more. In the past couple of weeks, we have done 2 tests on the X-Winder. You can see those in the top right. I believe we used 3/4 inch PVC for that. So we have a pretty good method right now of winding and also removing the laminates off the mandrel. So I'm pretty excited to keep going with that. Actually, while I was in the lab today, I found I guess I didn't find it, but it was just sitting out, a 4.5 inch PVC pipe that I'm excited to throw on there and do a wind with that. So hopefully in the next few weeks, we can do a little bit more experimentation with that. Currently, or I guess in this next meeting, we're going to talk about possible revision of the modular fin design that was previously known as the MLA. Obviously, we learned a lot about the manufacturing of stuff like this with Zenith. So we're hoping to bring a lot of that knowledge and make a better modular design for that. And of course, as everyone is doing, the airframe diameter trade study. So
Perfect. Okay. Does anyone have any comments, questions, or concerns? Let me make sure no one's raising their hand. I'm seeing hands raised. I actually have one for recovery. Recovery, do you guys know what material y'all would like to use for the parachutes?
So for that, we had our meeting with you, man, and they recommended a couple of layers of ripstop nylon sewed together, same material, like sewed same materials. And then I think it's Kevlar for the
Thread.
For the thread, yeah.
Okay, cool. I only asked because I spoke to Don, I think it was last week. He mentioned to me that he thought it was really cool that y'all were doing the parachute idea, the whole project. And he mentioned that if you were looking for a more cheaper alternative for something that was a little bit more cost effective, he mentioned to look into sailboats. Apparently the material that they use for sailing is very similar to what you would use for a parachute. Okay, anyone else have any questions, comments, or concerns? Oh, Irvin. Irvin, do you have a question?
I just had a comment for propulsion. There's already a code and a lot of documentation for the load cells and the test stands from my year, and also Emily and Eric worked on a mini test stand before we did. So I just sent the link on the chat right now if you want to look at it. And then there's also a full CAD of the test stand on the drive that you can access, that you can edit if you want to add parts and stuff. And then I was just wondering, what diameter are y'all using for the aluminum casings?
We have 1 inch right now. These are just 1 inch. We were doing 1 inch last semester with the paper as well, so we're starting there. I don't remember what we were aiming for in terms of the power. It was somewhere like EFG kind of region. I don't remember. Maybe it was a little bit smaller. No, E, F, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I don't know the alphabet. But yeah, somewhere in the kind of pretty low power, obviously. But But yeah, do you know where the load cells are?
The load
looking
cells should be in the propulsion box. You have the S-shaped load cell, which is the big one for like 500 pounds. Now the smaller one, I think it was in the back room. I don't know where it was moved afterwards. But that big S load cell should it should be great. Also, all the components to make the mini test stand, like the relays, the buttons, and even perf boards, if you want to do that, are also in like a box with the propulsion stuff. If not, it's in one of the cabinets.
Oh, so like a relay to ignite the motor and things like that.
Yeah, same with the amplifier for the load cell. So literally everything is in there. And there's also schematic that we made. I think that was in last year's drive. So you can do a little digging and you'll literally find everything.
All right. Thank you. Bookmark that tab.
Thank you, Urban. That was so helpful. I also went ahead and added that folder, a shortcut to our drive. So if anyone wants to see it, it's under resources. Anyone have any other questions, comments, or concerns?
Yeah, I have a question.
Go ahead.
So how do I get access to, can someone drop like a link to like the main like Space City Rocket like folder, like Google Drive folder?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and share it right now. It's also in the RT General. I believe Ravi just shared it as well.
Okay, cool. Appreciate it.
I want to ask Payload how they're gonna test to see if the bugs are gonna get like liquefied or something.
There's a few things we can do. We can use a centrifuge. We can ask people if we can put it in like their L1s, their L2s, Raj's L3. And I don't know if that Kevin has any other ideas, but he watched a video where I think like crickets got liquefied.
Okay. Do you have a link, Kevin?
No, but if I find it, I will send it to you.
Thanks.
Payload, Charles had a question. He asked, does it hurt the bugs?
No, they will be peacefully asleep and frozen. And they'll be fed too, so they'll have a relaxing trip.
That's good to hear. Anyone else have any questions, comments, or concerns?
I have a silly question about Payload. Is there going to be a trade study on which bug we are going to send up in the air?
Yeah, that's one of the trade studies we're working on currently. So yeah, we will.
Okay, that's that's actually pretty cool. I'm gonna read that. Thank you, Kevin.
Yo, one more question for avionics. Where do you all plan to, or like, what are you trying to test with the thermocouples and the strain gauges? I'm assuming for the thermocouple would be the motor. What motor?
Yeah, so thermocoupler, we had a few couple ideas. We originally saw that the original ideas for the thermocoupler was actually a project given to us by IA Coatings. They wanted to see how hot the paint got on the airframe, but we also saw that we could also use the thermocouplers to measure how hot the motor gets. So we probably will most likely measure the motor, but I was gonna probably ask propulsion in a hot minute of which one might be more useful to them. Like, would it be really useful if we could see how hot the motor gets during the flight? And if it's not that useful, we might just put it on the airframe, see how hot the paint of the rocket itself gets, and then send that data to IO Coatings, because I heard they originally wanted that data because it could help them out as well.
Okay, that's cool. I guess it's a suggestion too. You can probably test those things in with the test stand.
Nice. I'll probably look into it. I'll ask Scott and Parsa more about that.
Recovery, you have a question. It is, do you think testing out material used for kites could work for parachutes?
My personal experience with kites is that they use a very thin material that rips really easily. So I don't think we would look into that, but we can.
We'd probably need something thicker.
Yeah, I've never heard a lot of kites being made with ripstop nylon, which is the same stuff we're going to be using. And I guess in a manner of speaking, yeah, we are going to be using the same material.
I don't know. My experience with them is that it just rips super easily.
It really, yeah, it depends on which, because when you say kites, you kind of have to be specific because obviously your store-bought brand kites aren't going to be the same. And even if you go to somewhere else, it really just depends. Kites, there's a lot of materials that people use for kites.
All right, thank you guys for answering that. Have a good night, Irvin. Unfortunately, we cannot go past 8 p.m. for our meeting. The AIAA president needs to use the account for the meeting or for a meeting. But I just wanted to quickly remind you guys that our next general meeting will be September 6th at 7 p.m. Location to be determined. But yeah, any last questions, comments, concern? If not, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.